My name is Ella. I am 26 years old. I live in Cambridge, United Kingdom. I go to work every day. I come home. I eat dinner. Then I go to sleep. My life is quiet. My life is small. Most days, I do not speak much. I work in a small office. I sit at a desk. I look at a screen. I type on my keyboard. I fix simple things. I send emails. That is my job. I do it every day. It is not hard, but it is not fun. At lunch, I sit at my desk. I eat my food alone. Some people talk and laugh. I hear them. I see them, but I do not join them. They never ask me. I never ask them. I feel like I am not part of their world. At 5 o'clock, I leave work. I walk to the bus stop. I ride the bus home. I eat dinner by myself. I wash the dishes. Then I watch TV or read. I go to bed early. I do the same thing the next day. I do not have friends in this city. I do not talk to my neighbors. I do not get phone calls. No one visits me. I feel like I live in a box. I feel like no one sees me. My mom died 2 years ago. She was my best friend. She always talked to me. She made me feel happy. After she died, I felt lost. My dad lives far away now. He has a new wife. He does not call often. I sit in my flat and look out the window. I see people walking on the street. Some are alone. Some are with friends. Some are with family. I wonder if they feel happy. I wonder if they feel seen. One person at work is not like the others. His name is Ben. He sits near me. He is quiet. He works hard. He does not talk a lot. But he always says, "Good morning." He always says, "Goodbye." He holds the door if I walk behind him. One morning, I was late for work. The bus did not come. I had to walk. It was raining. My coat was wet. My shoes were wet. My hair was wet. I felt cold and sad. When I sat at my desk, no one said anything. But Ben looked at me and said, "Bad day?" I said, "Yes, very bad." He smiled a little. I smiled too. It was only a short talk, but it helped. I looked at Ben's desk. He had a small plant. It was green and bright. I liked it. My desk was plain. No plant. No photo. Just a screen and a cup. I wanted my desk to feel warm too. One day, I went to the kitchen at work. 2 women were talking. They were laughing. I walked in. They looked at me. Then they stopped laughing. They did not speak to me. I poured my tea. Then I left the room. Back at my desk, I felt sad. I looked at my tea. It was hot, but I felt cold inside. I wanted to go home. I wanted to cry, but I stayed. I did my work. That afternoon, Ben came to my desk. He had 2 teacups. He gave one to me. He said, "Milk, no sugar?" I looked at him. I was surprised. "Yes," I said. He smiled. Then he walked back to his desk. I held the cup. It was warm. I looked at it. I smiled. He remembered how I drink my tea. No one else ever did that. I took a sip. It tasted better than before. One Friday, I stayed late at work. I had to finish a report. Most people went home. I was alone in the office. I felt tired. My back hurt. My eyes felt heavy. Then I heard a sound. It was Ben. He was still there. He looked at me and said, "Still working?" I said, "Yes." "Almost done?" He said, "Me too." Then he went to the printer. After a few minutes, he asked, "Do you walk home?" I said, "No." "I take the bus." He said, "It's cold out." I said, "Yes, I know." He smiled and said, "Take care. See you Monday." I said, "You too." Then he left. I sat at my desk and looked at the door. I felt something new. I felt seen. I felt like I was not so invisible anymore. That weekend, I went to the shop. I saw a small plant like Ben's. I bought it. I put it on my desk at home. It was green and soft. I liked looking at it. On Monday, Ben saw the plant. He said, "Nice plant." I smiled and said, "Thank you." That was all. But I felt happy. Another day, I had a headache. My head hurt all morning. I could not work fast. I felt slow. I felt weak. I drank water, but it did not help. Ben looked at me and said, "You okay?" I said, "No. My head hurts." He opened his drawer. He gave me a small pack of crackers. He said, "Eat this. Might help." I said, "Thank you." I took the crackers and ate slowly. They were just crackers, but they felt like more. They felt like care. I smiled a little. I felt better. Not just in my head, in my heart too. One evening I missed the bus. I was cold. I stood at the stop and waited. Then I saw Ben. He was walking down the street. He saw me. He stopped. He said, "Miss the bus?" I said, "Yes. It came early." He said, "I'm walking to the next stop. Come." I said, "Okay." We walked together. The street was quiet. The sky was gray. The air was cold. We did not talk much, just walked side by side. After a while, he said, "It's nice to walk with someone." I said, "Yes." Then he said, "You are quiet, But I see you. I looked at him. I did not know what to say. I just smiled. He smiled too. At the bus stop, we waited. I looked at the road. Then I looked at him again. He looked calm. He looked kind. The bus came. We got on. We sat in different seats. But I felt close to him. That night I came home and made tea. I sat by my window and looked out. People walked past. The sky was dark. The streetlights were on. But I did not feel alone. For the first time in a long time, someone saw me. Before I continue my story, I want to ask you something. Where are you listening from? Sometimes I wonder if someone out there really understands me. Just knowing you're here gives me strength. The next week, I felt different. I still woke up early. I still went to work. I still sat at the same desk. But something in me had changed. My days were not so dark now. I looked forward to small things. I looked forward to seeing Ben. He still said good morning every day. He still smiled when I passed his desk. Sometimes he gave me tea. Sometimes he gave me a cracker or a sweet. He never said much. But I felt safe around him. One afternoon, I finished my work early. I was about to pack my things. Ben looked at me and said, "Going home?" I said, "Yes." "I finished everything." He said, "Me too." "Want to walk to the bus?" I said, "Okay." We walked together. It was a slow walk. The sky was clear. The air was cold. My hands were cold too, but I didn't mind. Ben talked about the trees. He said he liked autumn. He said the leaves looked like gold. I said, "I like autumn too." We smiled. That walk was short, but it stayed in my mind. It felt good to walk with someone. It felt good to talk about small things. It felt good to feel warm in the cold air. The next morning, Ben gave me a small cookie. He said, "I made these." I looked at him. "You bake?" I asked. He smiled. "Sometimes," he said. I said, "Thank you." The cookie was sweet and soft. It made my day better. One day, I was late again. The bus came early and left without me. I had to walk. It was windy and cold. I came into work late. My hair was messy. My face was red from the wind. I sat at my desk and tried to work. My fingers were cold. I felt tired. I didn't want to speak. Then I heard Ben say, "Tough morning?" I nodded. "Yes," I said. He gave me a cup of hot tea. "This will help," he said. I looked at the tea. I held it with both hands. It was warm. I smiled. "Thank you," I said. "You're always kind." He looked at me and said, "You are kind too." I didn't speak after that. I just looked down and smiled. After that day, I started to speak more. Not a lot. Just a little. When Ben asked something, I gave more than one-word answers. When I saw something funny at work, I told him. I said, "Look at this email. It's very silly." He smiled and said, "That made me laugh." We started to sit together at lunch. He brought sandwiches. I brought fruit. Sometimes we shared. Sometimes we talked about the news. Sometimes we said nothing. But I never felt alone. One Friday, the office was busy. People moved fast. Phones rang. Printers made noise. My head hurt. I felt tired. I made a small mistake in my work. My boss saw it. He was not happy. He told me to check my work better next time. I felt sad. I didn't speak. I sat at my desk and stared at the screen. I wanted to go home. Then Ben passed a small paper to me. It said, "Don't worry. It was a small mistake. You are doing well." I looked at him. He smiled and gave a small nod. That small note made my eyes wet. But I didn't cry. I just smiled. I put the note in my bag. I read it again when I got home. The next week, I bought 2 cookies from a shop. I gave one to Ben. He looked surprised. "For me?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "For you." He smiled and said, "Thank you." We ate the cookies at our desks. It was a small thing, but it felt big. I had never shared anything with someone at work before. I had never felt this close to anyone in a long time. One evening, we missed the bus again. Ben said, "Let's walk." I said, "Okay." We walked through the streets. We talked about our weekend plans. I said, "I might go to the park." He said, "I like the park near the library." I said, "I like it too." He looked at me and said, "We could walk there together one day." I smiled. "Yes," I said. "I would like that." At home that night, I sat on my bed. I looked at the ceiling. I thought about Ben. He made me feel calm. He made me feel seen. I felt like I could breathe near him. The next day, it rained all morning. The windows were wet. People came in with umbrellas. I forgot mine. My coat was wet. My hair was wet again. Ben gave me a dry tissue. I wiped my face and said, "Thank you." He said, "You should keep an umbrella at work." I said, "That's a good idea." He smiled. That afternoon, he left something on my desk. It was a small umbrella. It was black and folded. A note said, "Now you will always have one." I looked at the umbrella. I held it in my hand. I smiled. I felt warm inside. That weekend, I went to the market. I saw a scarf that looked nice. It was blue and soft. I thought of Ben. I bought it. On Monday, I gave it to him. He looked at it. For me? He asked. Yes, I said. It's warm, he said. Thank you. That's very kind. He put the scarf around his neck. He looked happy. We talked more after that. At lunch, after work, on the way to the bus stop. I told him about my mom. He told me about his brother. I said I live alone. He said, me too. I said, sometimes it is hard. He said, yes, it is. Then he looked at me and said, but you make it easier. I did not know what to say. I just looked at him. I smiled. He smiled back. We stood in silence, but it was not cold. It was warm. That night I could not sleep, but I did not feel sad. I felt full. I felt like something new had started. I looked at the small plant on my desk. I touched its leaf. It was soft and green. It was still alive, just like me. One Saturday morning, I woke up early. The sun was out. The sky was blue. I made tea and sat by the window. I looked at the street. I saw people walking. I saw a dog run. I felt calm. I felt ready. I picked up my phone. I sent a message to Ben. I said, "Good morning. Do you still want to walk in the park today?" He wrote back, "Yes. Let's meet at 11. At 11 we met near the gate. He wore the blue scarf I gave him. I wore my new coat. We walked on the path. The grass was wet. The air was cold but soft. I felt happy. We talked about trees. We talked about books. We talked about music. Sometimes we said nothing. We just walked and smiled. It felt easy. It felt safe. After the walk, we sat on a bench. We watched the ducks in the water. Ben said, "I'm glad we did this." I said, "Me too." He looked at me. I looked at him. His eyes were kind. He said, "You are not like other people." I asked, "Why?" He said, "You listen. You care. You are real." I smiled. I said, "Thank you." I looked at the sky. The clouds moved slowly. I felt light. That night I made soup. I ate and thought about the park. I thought about Ben. He was not loud. He did not say big things, but his small words stayed with me. He gave me peace. He gave me time. Monday came. I went to work. I smiled more now. People noticed. One woman said, "You look happy today." I said, "Thank you." That was all. But it felt nice. Ben gave me tea that morning. I said, "I will make tea tomorrow." He smiled. "Deal," he said. That week, I looked forward to each day. I did my work. I helped others when I could. I cleaned my desk. I brought fruit to share. I felt different. I felt new. One day, I saw a man near the bus stop. He looked cold. He had no coat. I had gloves in my bag. I walked to him and said, "You can take these." He looked surprised. He said, "Thank you." I smiled and walked away. I felt warm inside. Ben saw me do that. He said, "That was kind." I said, "You helped me see things better." He smiled. He said, "You were always kind. You just needed someone to show you." On Friday, we sat at lunch. Ben said, "I'm moving to a new flat." I said, "Oh." My smile dropped. He said, "It's still in Cambridge. Just a new street." I said, "That's good." Then he asked, "Will you come see it one day?" I said, "Yes. I would like that." He said, "You can help me choose a plant." I laughed. "Only if it looks like yours," I said. The next week, we walked after work. We talked about family. I told him I missed my mom. He said, "She would be proud of you." I looked down. I felt my eyes get wet, but I smiled. I said, "Thank you." He said, "You are strong. You are kind. I am happy we met." I said, "Me too." We stopped walking. The wind passed slowly. It was quiet, but it was not empty. He said, "I want to see you more, not just at work." I looked at him. I said, "I want that too." He smiled. I smiled. We kept walking, but something had changed. It was small, but it was real. The days after that were good. We had lunch together. We talked on the phone. On Sunday, he came to my flat. I made tea. He brought cookies. We listened to music. We looked at old photos. We laughed. It felt easy. I showed him the small plant on my desk. He touched the leaf. He said, "It's doing well." I said, "It is. So am I." That night after he left, I sat on the sofa. I looked around my small home. It was quiet, but I did not feel alone. I felt full. I felt safe. The next week, we went to the park again. We sat on the bench. He said, "This is my favorite place now." I said, "Me too." He looked at me and said, "You changed my life." I looked back. I said, "You changed mine first." I did not feel small anymore. I did not feel like a shadow. I felt like a person. I felt like I mattered. At work, I still typed. I still looked at numbers. But now I smiled. I said hello. I made tea for others. I brought biscuits to share. I sat with people at lunch sometimes. I asked how they were. I did not need many friends. I did not need a big life. I just needed to be seen. I just needed to feel care. I found that. I found it in one quiet voice. I found it in one kind heart. I thought back to that first tea, that first cookie, that walk in the cold. Those were small things, but they changed everything. One evening we walked home again. I held his hand. He held mine. The sky was dark. The street was quiet. But I was not afraid. I was not empty. I looked at him and said, "Thank you for seeing me." He said, "I always saw you. I was just waiting for you to see me too." We walked on, step by step, soft and slow,